right, so you guys are probably all obviously here to learn about black and gray, like photorealism, portraits. Are you guys all into to black and gray realism? Everybody here? Anybody here who's like not interested in portraits or anything? Because I'm going to talk about just black and gray technique. Are you into black and gray though? Yeah. Okay. Because yeah, just so much talking about technique as I'm talking about. And I'll talk about the freehand stuff I do and all that. So, but just you can like technique and stuff you can see. And it'd be cool to be doing a tattoo to seminar, but you guys probably know how slow I am. It's still a running joke in the convention circuit since I've been doing conventions for the last 16 years. I don't think I'm that slow. And I remember Brian Everett was watching me, portrait tattooer, pioneering portrait legend. But he was watching me at a convention. He's like, because Jack Rudy's always busting my balls about being slow, and But Brian was watching for a while. He's like, you're not slow, man. He's like, that's how long it takes to do what you're doing, And but at the same time, there's people like Robert Hernandez who are really fast and really, really good, So I am slower than a lot of people for sure, but I'm not slower than Ralph Nonweiler. He tattooed the back of my thigh at Off the Map last summer, and it took 11 hours. It's a portrait of Keith Richards from the Stones, Rolling Stones. And that thing hurts so fucking bad, man. And it's not that he's heavy-handed, but I think it was the way his machines hit, maybe. He had these machines I've never seen. They look like rotaries, but they're louder than rotaries. They almost sound like a coil, and I forgot to... I asked him where he got them. I don't remember anything he told me, but I have really horrible memory. It's really bad. Everyone says their memory's the worst. Mine really is worse than anybody. All you guys put together. I'm old though. So I think I'm gonna say it's age. Because I've always thought, man, am I getting like Alzheimer's or something? So I hope it's not that. I just think it's age, and drank a lot of beer and stuff over the years, and maybe my brain cells are half dead. I don't know. I don't drink that much. I don't drink as more than I do drink. So don't you guys think I drink every day? I have a week off here and there all the time, But I do have a reputation in conventions for partying every night and keeping everybody up later than they want to be and stuff. But I was going to talk about tattooing hungover. I was going to actually talk to my friends, and I want to do a seminar on tattooing while hungover. But I like my first probably full year tattooing when I first started. I never went out drinking when I had to tattoo the next day. I might have if we went out or something, I have like maybe 2 beers or something. But I always thought I would never want to cheat the client and come in hungover feeling like shit, And then one day I did at some point, and it's like, I can tattoo just fine, just as good. I just feel like shit for a while, And so now it's like at conventions and stuff. Like I don't worry about staying up too late, drinking too much, because my tattoos come out. They never come out worse than they would have if I had a good night's sleep and felt good, It's just a little slower getting started, setting up. You're like, oh, God, I got a tattoo today. And then once you get into it, it's almost like a hangover cure. You kind of get in a zone, start working, and then you just start feeling better. And but seriously, the tattoos have never suffered. So like I don't condone drinking, being hungover and tattooing, but I've never ever in my life canceled an appointment because I'm hungover, because I know so many tattooer friends of mine that have, and that's not cool, man. That's cheating your client. If you go out and you're hungover and you can't tattoo, that's bullshit, So I don't know why I'm talking about this. It's just a waste of time. Man.
It feels like a AAA. My name is...
Hi, I'm an alcoholic.
Oh.
It's a...
So, do you guys want me to just start talking about some of the stuff I want to talk about, and then, or you want to just start off asking questions right off the bat? Like I said, it's a free-for-all, so however you guys want me to do it.
Do you run your machines on a low, like
hour? Like
Yeah, when I tattoo, it's photorealism's a pretty slow process, you know, and just about all the real portrait guys I know run their machines slower than obviously than if you're like doing, you know, super heavy saturated color traditional work or something. Or I know so many traditional tattooers that are fucking brutal. You know, everyone says they just get it in there really quick, you know, and solid. But portrait tattooing is a slower process. You're more gentle. You know, I'm not just sitting there with circular oval hand motions, just packing in black and gray. You know, it's everything I do. 90% of every portrait I do, it's all brushing it in one stroke at a time. You know, and I'm usually just going in one direction. You know, and I do a lot of what I call a backstroke. And this, when I used coils, this might have helped a little more. Like now, I've been using the Cheyenne Hawk pen for about 1.5 years now, but my technique hasn't changed at all. I work exactly the same as I did with coils. But I remember I kind of got a new habit of when I shaded, doing shading backwards, called backstroke, and just one stroke at a time, you know, brushing it in, and you're slowly building it up and layering it, you know, and I think with a coil, because you got a needle bar with a rubber band holding it, when you're going backwards, there's a bit of give in that needle because it's got the rubber band holding it, so it can probably move a little bit when you're brushing it. It can come off the bottom of the tube, you know. When you're going forward, it's against the tube, so there's no give, you know. It's when you're shading forward like that. But when you go backwards, I think it's probably putting in just a little bit softer, you know. This could be complete bullshit, I don't know, it's just a theory, you know. But I could see it just going a little softer because there's less give like that. So I did that a lot, you know. But actually now, and then as well with coils, but now like when I'm using the pen, I do a lot of brushing that way and then go back that way and just I don't do soft blends doing a circular. The only time I do a circular hand motion is when I'm packing black in a portrait or something. Sometimes, or when I'm doing like a background, I started using bigger mags, which I'm going to talk about, which I never did with coils. But if I'm doing a big background around the outside of a portrait or something, I'm using that big curved mag, then I do circular hand motions. But I know what I'm putting in, you know, because I have I'm using my gray wash set in 10s. So if it's a dark gray, I know what I'm putting in, because when you do circular packing in like that, it goes in darker quicker, you know. That's why when I'm doing soft shades in a face and stuff, like I don't want to go in too dark for one, you know. And brushing it in, you're kind of easing your way into it, and you're not damaging the skin that much when you're working that way, so you're able to go over it a lot. And I don't know how many times I go over, you know, like I can't say, well, you have like 6 passes and that's it or something, you know. I remember someone saying years ago that you have like 3 passes of the skin and that's it. Like if you're doing tribal or something, any more than that, you're risking damaging the skin. But when you're brushing it in like that, it's I can just work on it until I'm happy with it, you know. I'm not really worried about overworking it, you know. And I remember Paul Booth telling me, you know, you're always working the skin like close to the limit, you know. You know, to work it as thorough as you want it to be and be happy with it. And there's been times where I know I worked an area a lot, and it's like, man, I got to go over that spot a little more, and I'm like, man, I hope it's not going to overdo it. And these guys probably had tattoos. Every once in a while, someone might get a little scab here or there, you know. That happens with everybody. I've had a lot of famous tattooers on me where I've got big, thick scabs, you know. And, sometimes they heal good. You didn't lose anything, and then sometimes little holidays there and have to get it touched up, you know. It doesn't happen very often, you know, but it's happened on me a lot with different artists, you know. Half of my tattoos, maybe, I probably had a scab here or there or something. But you know what I noticed using this Cheyenne pen? Everybody heals perfect. Like, it's a nice smooth heal, but not that people healed bad before. Like I rarely had to touch up a tattoo my whole career, So I think the way I work doesn't beat up the skin too much, But I have touched up little things here and there, But it's not like a regular thing, But that pen, it's, I always thought before I, ever used rotaries, they seem harder hitting. So I would think they would damage the skin quicker than a coil machine would. You kind of got to get in and get out, but it's I kind of found it to be the opposite. And Tommy Lee was telling me about this. It's the way the rotary hits the skin. It doesn't damage the skin as like the way I forget exactly how he explained it, but the way a coil, the needles hit the skin with a coil machine, it kind of goes in and it hits the skin a different way, where the rotary, the way it hits it, it's more of a direct hit, and it doesn't damage it as much as a coil does. So you can go over it more and not damage the skin. Oh, thanks. Now we have water, beer, and coffee, man.
Beer first.
Right up to us. Take a bathroom break halfway through. But anyway, what was your question again? If I ramble too much, guys, tell me, hey, get back on track, man.
Worst memory that you, see.
You were asking if you had emergency machines.
Yeah, if it hits low. I was thinking about
Oh, yeah.
as far as the coil machines. You went from coil to rotary, and so did I not that long ago. I actually got me a rotary that has like some give, Spectra edge, and just turned this knob and it has a little bit of give. And is it harder for you to transition from?
No.
Or was it?
It was an easy transition from coil to the pen, and I tried it at a convention in Copenhagen real quickly. I had a friend I did a tattoo on, and I just added some background to it just to try it out. It's like, oh, this is pretty cool, but I mean, it hits totally different than a coil.
Yeah.
Feels totally different, But I could still, it wasn't like weird, like I really quickly adapted to it. But then a month later in the Toronto convention, Conrad's a friend of mine who works for Cheyenne, and he goes, hey, I'll give you a pen if you want to try it out, and if you like it, he told me he'd give it to me, so I'm like, cool, So I did my first full tattoo with it, and it was like, but halfway through the tattoo, I had it 100% down, I was actually splitting the booth with Paul Booth, and he's like, you're going to try a rotary for the first time at a convention, And I'm like, yeah, it's probably not a good idea, huh? And he's like, no, you'll be okay. He goes, it takes some getting used to, But I found it was like really easy to get used to.
I never went back to coils.
No, dude, that first tattoo at the Toronto convention, I haven't touched a coil since that first tattoo I've done. It's been about a year and a half now.
But most of us are probably going to be using the Cheyenne or already have it. Will you talk about configurations of what needles you use for that particular
Yeah. And you guys, I don't know if you guys are taking notes, because we're going to be talking about everything kind of all mixed up and stuff, so I definitely encourage taking notes, like, I don't remember shit, I've done seminars and stuff, and it's like, every seminar I've done, it seems like I remember, like, there might be two little things that kind of stick with me, and a lot of it I kind of forget, so I've always taken a lot of notes when I did seminars, but I've misplaced all those. They're in my house somewhere. I have no idea where. My house is a fucking abyss of crap. So it's good to take notes, keep all that stuff with you, and it's, note taking is a good thing. If you guys all have writing stuff, utensils, paper, and all that.
If you can.
I don't have anything.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, man.
No, that's fine.
Bless you.
I have bacon. It's in your phone.
Too much cocaine for Tony last night.
That's where you were.
But okay, let's talk about needle configurations, and since we're on that subject, when I use coils, I ended up, like when I apprenticed at Eternal Tattoos, I had a really lucky to have a really, really amazing apprenticeship, man. It lasted 3 months, and I the owner of Eternal was a very old school dude. He was the president of a motorcycle club, did 2 tours in Vietnam, spent 3 years in prison. You know, he's an old school guy, and he started this enterprise, and he's one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. You know, and but when I went in to do the apprenticeship, I was expecting a full old school apprenticeship. You know, fucking cleaning the bathrooms, scrubbing everybody's tubes, making needles, you know, answering the phone, mopping the floor, whatever. And Tramp just brought me in, and he taught me how to make needles the very first night I went in. I had a date for 15 years. I made kitchen countertops, so I was 34 years old when I started tattooing. So when I did the apprenticeship, I was going in Monday through Friday from like 6 to 9 o'clock at night, you know. But after he showed me how to make needles, the next day he's like, just watch the guys work, observe, ask questions, and that was it. And that's all I did, you know. There was one night when the shop girl usually mops the floor at the end of the night, and she wasn't there, and Tramp was mopping the floor. I'm like, dude, you want me to mop the floor? And he's like, you don't want to mop the floor, you need to learn how to tattoo, you know. It's just... So I ended up doing like 6 tattoos and then started full time. Just kind of threw me out there, you know. But Tom Renshaw, if you guys, is there anybody who doesn't know who Tom Renshaw is? It's okay to be honest, you know. Write his name down and look him up. And, so in 1997, Tom Renshaw was like the best black and gray tattoo portrait artist in the world, you know, and that was like undisputed. Everybody agreed, you know, the best in the world. And he was there in Detroit at the shop I was apprenticing at, you know. So before I started tattooing, you know, I knew I wanted to eventually like specialize in black and gray portraits, and then Paul Booth style, like horror, freehand horror stuff. You know, I'm a big horror fan, so not horror fan, horror fan.
That too.
Yeah, you know, speak for yourself. So I got really lucky to apprentice there. I was going to apprentice with Mario Barth, man, and it's a whole other story. But he was going to be based in he was going to be a partner with a guy in Detroit, and it didn't work out. And I was married with 4 stepkids, and he ended up opening a shop in South Beach, Florida. So I just couldn't do it, you know. So I talked to Mario and stuff, and decided to go to the best shop in Detroit, you know, which was Eternal, you know. So anyway, I learned from the best portrait black and gray tattoo in the world. Like, it's just pure luck, you know. Tom was working there. So because I wanted to do portraits and stuff, I would end up going in at night, and if Tom was doing a portrait, which was most of the time, I ended up usually just sitting there for 3 hours and watching him the whole night, you know. And I did bounce around, watch the other guys, but I really focused on Tom and stuff. And he could tell I really wanted to learn. I think he really appreciated how much I wanted to learn and stuff, so he took me under his wing and then became my main teacher, you know. And so everything I learned from early on was all Tom, you know. So he taught me the kind of the basis of my technique still to this day. It's like all pretty much came from Tom Renshaw, you know. And he's still one of the best in the world, you know, but he's real low key now. He had got out there early on, did conventions, a bunch of articles in magazines, and then got sick of conventions. He's a homebody, so he just stays home and works now 3 days a week, you know. But check him out, he's amazing. So all the technique stuff I talk about is more based on him, you know. And everything we do is we steal from everybody, you know, borrow, steal, learn from everybody, you know. And there's so many different techniques out there. And one thing I gotta say is in tattooing, there's no right or wrong way to do anything, you know. Everyone just has their own way of doing things. So a lot of the stuff I do is the wrong way to do it, but it's what Tom Renshaw taught me. It's just the way he worked, and I wanted to tattoo like him, you know. Stuff like using a 7 mag for the entire tattoo, you know, which I'll talk about too. I'm going to get back to needle configurations. I'm rambling again. So the reason why I was saying all this is because Tom Renshaw kind of got me started using a 7 mag for pretty much like the whole tattoo, you know, like. So once I started getting into portraits, like the way Tom would work to do a portrait, he'll make the stencil, like this, we'll talk about all this too. But he'll make a copy of the portrait on just regular copy paper, you know. You guys probably all have done this, and then you take a piece of thermal paper, you know, put blue carbon paper facing up, put your copy right on there, and then just draw it right on the copy itself, and then you get the carbon on the back, you know. And then Tom would cut that out, like I did with this, and then use this as a stencil. You don't even have to use a thermal copier, you know. And that's pretty much what I do. You know, it's how I work. I've just fallen in that habit. Sometimes, depending on the body part I'm putting it on, I would, like, so if I'm doing like a portrait on the top of a forearm or something, it wraps quite a bit. It's kind of a weird. So this is stiffer paper than thermal paper, you know. So trying to, if it's pretty big, putting this on the skin, you got it laid on there, and the paper's all kind of like, it's not all touching the skin, you know. It's kind of, this part sticking up here, so then you got to go and push that part down, and then you end up double sticking part of it. You got to wipe it off and do it again and all that. So sometimes I will go out of my way to get it on thermal, you know, use a thermal copier, and because the paper's thinner and it wraps easier and it's just better, you know. But I pretty much make my stencils like this, you know. It's just an old habit.
Do you ever put it right on the actual outer paper and just, because that's what I'll do. I'll put it on the actual, and I'll just fucking
Do it
ream
real.
out.
Yeah, you have to press a little harder, don't you, to get it dark enough?
Yeah.
I think I tried to do that once, and I think I remember it not just being, it wasn't quite dark enough.
Yeah. It's easier to wipe it back, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, this is just, it works, you know. If I'm able to, I'll make a copy of it before I put it on, because there had been a couple times where I smeared it and had to redraw it, you know, because I didn't make a backup copy.
I was going to say that the trick I learned is just use a light table, and I'll trace as I would be doing that. I'll do a tracing of it, and then I'll actually save that in a file that I can then make smaller or larger,
Yeah.
depending on if I have to. But again, same thing, I have it as a backup. If anything goes wrong, I don't have to redraw. They used to drive me nuts having to redraw something at 25% larger, because
Yeah,
you're like, oh, go get a little bit bigger, and then
you're like,
I've already-
fuck, it should be a little bigger, and it's like, and you're not,
Yeah.
you're thinking, maybe I'll just keep it this size,
Right.
but you can't. You
Yeah.
want it to be
Tell them it's 25.
the perfect size for the body part. So yeah, I've never done that. I've never said, oh, fuck it, man, I'm just keep it the same size. It's a little small, but fuck it. Just don't tell them that I've never done that. So, where was I at? See, I lost track of my...
Needle configuration.
So needle configurations, okay. But yeah, Tom, you know, like I said, he'll get the stencil on there, and then he starts from the bottom, you know, which a lot of you guys have probably done this already if you're doing portraits. And you start from the bottom, jump right in there with whatever mag you're using. Tom used a 7 mag, and they were bug pin needles back then. We were making needles. I've made needles my first 9 years tattooing. But you buy a pack of 1,000, but they were called 00 bug pins. You know, they were actually called that. So, and they were a little smaller than a standard number 12 needle, and that's what Tom Renshaw used, and Brian Everett, and Dino Cook when he was doing portraits back then. And that was kind of like, seemed like the portrait needle of choice, you know. So, but then when I started buying pre-made needles, the closest I'd found that nobody was making 00 bug pins. Cam or somebody was making 000 bug pins, and I tried them once and I thought they were too small. I didn't like them. Now I like them, but the closest I found was wherever I got them, Worldwide Tattoo or something. Some of the first pre-made needles, but it was 1207s, just a regular standard 7 mag. I was getting the 1007. So the needles are a little smaller. So they're not true bug pins, but they work like bug pins, you know. And they seem to work the same for me. But like when I use 00 gauge bug pins, I was using a 7 mag and a 7 mag tube, and they were a little smaller, a little bit of play, but not enough to really be a problem, you know. But when I started using these 10s, they were actually a little bit smaller still, where I had to use a 7 mag and a 5 mag tube. And there was only 2 companies where they fit. A lot of 5 mag tubes were just barely too tight, so I was rubbing them against the tube, and it didn't have a free flow. And so Blitz tubes and Mickey Sharp's tubes were the only 2 I found that fit perfectly, the 7 mag and a 5 mag tube. So that's what I did from, I guess, 9 years until a year and a half ago. I've been tattooing 19 years, so for 10 years I used that 7 mag and a 5 mag tube. But so my needle configurations were pretty much for every single tattoo I did, a regular 3-liner, just standard 12 gauge needles, just your typical 3-liner, and then a 7 mag 10 gauge needle and a 5 mag tube. And I would do the entire tattoo with those 2 needles, no matter how big it is. I've tried using bigger mags with coils, and I couldn't get the hang of it. I know you got to get a machine that runs a bigger mag like that. I don't know shit about machines. I'm really ashamed to say. So every tattooer should know their machines. You should know how to put together a machine and stuff. And that's all. I'll talk about that. I don't want to get sidetracked again, but so I would sometimes I'll try to set up an 11 mag with my regular setup, and I'll try it, and it's not going in good enough. It seems like it's taking longer to put it in, where it should be speeding me up, I would think, so I never gave them a chance. I'll use it for a minute or 2 and be like, fuck this, my 7 mag's working better, fuck it. So I just never used them, and then when I switched to this pen, now it's like a big 15 curve mag, man. It's like this is amazing, man. So anyway, so it's just a 3 and a 7 mag with coils, and now with my pen that I'm using now, I kind of have a basic setup. Every tattoo, it's 4 needles. I'll set up a regular 3-liner, a 5 mag. All the liner isn't bug pin, but all the mags are bug pin. So a 3-liner, 5 mag straight bug pin, not curved, and then a 7 curve mag and a 15 curve mag, all bug pin. And with those 4 needles, I can do everything, and it's I'm just having a blast with cartridges, man. It's just so fun to pop them in and out, and
Do you use round shaders at all?
every once in a great while, I have some 7 shaders, and every once in a while I'll use one, but I can pretty much do everything with a 7 shader with my 5 mag straight. I kind of use that instead of a 7 shader. One thing I was never good at is shading with liners, which some people are good, like, shading like the iris in a small portrait, and stuff. I like using my mags. I use my 5 mag to shade an iris in an eye. Sometimes they're so small that I wish I could shade with like maybe a little 3, like a loose 3-liner or something, a 3 mag. I guess a loose 3-liner is a 3 mag, right? Pretty much, but I want to start experimenting with that 3. You can get them. It's like I don't know what it's called. Cheyenne makes them. But I don't have to. I get by with what I'm using, At the same time, I think my work has tightened up a tiny bit since I switched to the pen, because I'm using these different needles now, and I just know it's getting a little bit tighter for some reason.
Did you notice that the cartridges are already smaller than traditional 12 gauge? Like, it seems to me that
Are
they're
they?
about 10 gauge. It seems to me.
Oh, you know what? Well, what I
The bug
heard.
pin's about like an 8 gauge.
Yeah.
You're talking Cheyenne carts?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
smaller.
Yeah. Because I had to like reformulate my head every time I'd go to get a cartridge from using bar needles. I'd have to think, I'm gonna have to get bigger to get the same size. So like a 9-liner is like a 7-liner.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, someone told me that the curve mags. I don't think it's the straight mags. I thought were like a 12 gauge, but are they all their needles a little smaller?
I'm not sure. There's no universal anything in
Yeah.
this industry.
I thought I had heard that
the ones that Cheyenne uses are all 10. They're
Everything?
all smaller.
Straight
They're all
or
bugged
curved?
in, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, see, someone told me that like the curved mags are already a 10 gauge, and that's what I used to use for a bug pin. So they're really
They
almost
have
like,
a bug pin as well.
and then they have the bug pin, and those are
That's
8s.
Yeah.
And those are what I like. Anything that's just for shading. Bug pin needles are so good, man. So you can do, I think, get the same effect with just a standard number 12 needle, because I've seen people do it. I've seen, especially back when everybody was using coils, say 10 years ago, and I remember Chewy Quintana, he worked for Jack Rudy, and just seeing his black and gray, and it was the smoothest black and gray I've ever seen in the world, at that time ever, and he's just standard number 12 needles. And same with Robert Hernandez, back then. I don't think Robert uses bug pins now even, and he's still using coils. And his work is as smooth as it gets in the world, pretty much. So it can be done with anything. That's why I'm saying there's no right or wrong way. But bug pins, Tom Renshaw started me on from the get-go, so I was used to them, and I would use regular number 12 mags for when I did a lot of color when I started, like everybody in a busy street shop, But black and gray, from the get-go, I used bug pins because of Tom Renshaw, so I got used to them from my first tattoos, So for me, if I use a bug pin and use a number 12, the bug pin's easier for me to do real soft black and gray, But there's been, I know at least twice I've been to a convention where I forgot my needles and nobody had bug pin bags, so I used just a number 12. It's like, this is actually working just fine, It's like, my work wasn't less smooth, I don't think, So I was thinking, maybe when I get home, I'll just switch to standard number 12s, then the 7 mags can fit perfectly in a 7 mag tube. You don't have to worry about trying to find the right tubes to fit these bug pin needles or whatever. But then I get home and switch back to my bug pins, But so just for me, it's easier. And I know a lot of black and gray portrait guys that they do prefer bug pins, and especially friends using the rotaries and stuff. A lot of people like curved mags and bug pins, I've noticed. I never used curved mags ever until I switched to the pen rotaries, I used to shade everything with a 5 mag, a 7 mag and a 5 mag tube, just straight. And my work, it looks pretty much the same, But now using the pen, using those 15 curved mags, it's just easier to do those, like the big soft backgrounds and stuff like that. I used to have to do that with that little 7 mag and a 5 mag tube, and so it takes longer. You got to go over it and shade different directions and just make it all look smooth, And I could, but with that big curved mag, it's just easier to get it just super smooth. So I was having, when I first started with that pen, I was just like starting over again. I was having a blast, and still am, And for a lazy guy like me, I've noticed real quickly, just talk about that. I don't want to plug the pen too much or any rotaries, but. And I was always swore I'd be loyal to the coil, man. I was never gonna. Everybody was switching rotaries. I'm like, I'm not, man. I'm not doing it. I like the sound of a buzzing machine too much, because it's like the sound of tattooing,
You get a soundtrack in the background.
Yeah. It's walk into a shop and you hear buzzing, it's like that's the sound of a tattoo shop. Yesterday I was working with Matt Stebley here at the convention, and he's got a rotary, but it's really loud. It sounds like a coil machine, and he was joking. Like yesterday, he set it up and started running. He said everyone in the room kind of stopped and looked at him like, "What's that sound?" Because everyone's using rotaries, So that's the only thing I miss about using this is that sound, or like if you walk into a shop or walk into a convention floor, you don't hear any coil machines. It sounds like you can't tell if people are working or not. But I love walking into a convention floor and hearing just buzzing everywhere, man. That's tattooing. So that's why I never wanted to switch to a rotary. But Tommy Lee, I spent a lot of time with him. A couple months. I was in Taiwan with him for a couple weeks, and right before I started using this, and he was just chewing my ear off about this thing. You gotta try it, man. For your style, you're gonna love it, man. You'll love it. Blah blah blah. So I finally tried it, and yep, he was right. So I never looked back. But the fact that this machine, throw in your back pocket, and it's like for, as much as I travel, I used to carry around a, gun case with 8 machines in it or something, and, it's weight, and, I used 1-inch grip stainless steel tubes because to take the weight off the heavy coil machine that I used, and I love that big hunk of metal in my hand. I like the weight, my wrist doesn't hurt as much now, since using the pen, so that's a bonus. Plus, I would like, if I'm on the road for 2 weeks or something, I got a big bag of stainless steel tubes. It's probably like an 8-pound bag of tubes or something, so to travel, and then you gotta wrap them up and come home with a bunch of dirty tubes, and then just scrubbing them and autoclaving them, once a week. I would do my tubes and stuff. Everything about the pen, is for a lazy guy like me, because I am lazy. It's just everything about it is more convenient, Setup's easier, just ready to go. Tear down's easier.
What power pack? Can you use any?
I'm using a Cheyenne.
Do you have to, or can you use a?
No, for the first month I used my own until I got one from them. And if you buy one, it comes with a little converter cord, so you can use any power supply. Someone told me they thought that the Cheyenne power supply actually worked a little better with it, but I didn't notice a difference at all. So, but I like the Cheyenne power supply. It's super light too. So and the cartridges weigh nothing. The machine weighs nothing. So I travel a lot, So to travel with this stuff has made life a lot easier, Everything's disposable now, It's just so easy, and the cartridges, it's so fun to just pop those in and out, Okay, I gotta use a liner for a minute, and instead of having to set up, although I only set up 2 coil machines before, but Ralph Nonweiler, I forgot to tell you earlier, when he tattooed me, he set up 12 fucking machines. It's like, dude, why? You don't need 12 machines. Yeah, I need 12 machines, It's like, he's like a mad scientist, Ralph, and he has this certain ways he does stuff, and he has to do them that way. Like, he has to make a stencil the night before. He has to set up the night before. He gets there, he puts a stencil on, I think, is it 2 hours he leaves it on before he starts? So he gets a stencil on, and then you got 2 hours to kill before he even starts. I'm thinking, we all usually just wait about 10 minutes, and then start, and the way we work, you're starting from the bottom, so you're not touching that stencil anyway, it's going to be 3 hours before you get to that upper part, so it's up, why wait, but it's got to do it this way, He's so funny, man. He's the nicest guy in the world, man. I love that guy. But 12 machines, it sounds ridiculous to me, I remember, Dino Cook back in the day used to set up 6 machines, and we all thought that was pretty crazy, And I saw Boris. You guys know Boris from Hungary? I was at the Berlin convention one year, and he had 9 machines set up. I counted them, And the tattoo was on a big shoulder blade piece, but it was about that big. It was kind of like a wizard-looking face with a beard and stuff, and it's. I looking at it, going, man, I could do that whole thing with a 7 mag, And he had 9 machines set up, So if you like a lot of, and if you like using a lot of different needle configurations and you use coils, it can be a pain in the ass setting up 6 machines, Setting up 2 machines, it almost seems like a lot to me now when there's 0 setup with this. Just bust open some cartridges and you're ready to go, So just the convenience of that I fell in love with, and the work comes out exactly the same, pretty much, So changing with the times, technology. What's that?
What were the cartridges you set up with that thing?
A 3-liner, 5 mag, bug pin, straight. And then a 7 curved mag and a 15 curved mag. Every once in a while I'll use a 9 curved mag, and if I think I need to, but I'm so used to 7 mags that I like that 7 curved mag, and I use that for a lot of just smaller but softer areas, you know, whether you have soft edges and stuff. I always use that 5 mag straight for like crisp edges of stuff. Like I might be shading the edge of a cheek that's a dark gray or even a medium gray or something. But with that straight 5 mag, I can get a super tight, crisp edge. But those curved mags, you can almost get a real tight edge as well. But it's 98% tight, not 100%, you know. So the 5 mag, I found myself doing edges, and then I may put that down, you know, pop in a curve mag and go from there, you know. I also use that 5 mag straight for like all my hair, you know. And sometimes a 7 mag straight would be even better, you know, if it's bigger hair and stuff. And I have them, and occasionally I will break one out. But I notice it seems like I'm just as fast using the 5 mag as if I'm using a 7 mag, you know. It doesn't seem like the 5 mag's taking longer. So, and I love the versatility of a 5 mag because you can shade big areas still, and then you can use it and get into little tight spots. You can use the corner of it, you know. And what I do a lot, because I don't use single needles, I use one needle off the corner of that 5 mag straight, you know, and cut little hairs in sometimes here and there, you know. Where Jack Rudy who's like the king of single needle, you know, he used to joke about that. We worked a lot of conventions together, and he's like, you know, hey Holmes, why don't you use a single for that? You know, he's like, it's the wrong tool for the job, you know. And single needle's made for little single lines, you know. Where because Tom Renshaw taught me to do this, you know, it's like using a single, but it's part of your mag, and the laziness factor kicks in again, and you don't have to fucking pick up another machine and do that when you can just do it all as you're shading, you know, do some little lines and not have to change anything, you know. But technically it is the wrong tool for the job, you know. I mean, if you're painting, you know, if you're painting something real tiny, you're using a small brush. If you're something big, softer areas, you're using a big brush, you know. And that's how tattooing, you know, that kind of applies to tattooing as well, you know. But with needles, you can get away with using them in ways they're not supposed to be used for, you know. So it's just because of habit that I work that way, you know. If you guys, does anybody here use single needles? Anybody? So there's a few. Cool. I mean, I bought some. I mean, I have some Cheyenne single needles that I've never tried yet.
Can't get them not to cut.
Pardon?
I can't get them not to cut.
Not to cut? They cut the skin?
Run them as low as I can, and they still seem like
Really? You think a coil would be better?
Just poke it with it, like just hand poke it, and then I know I'm not gonna cut.
Wow.
Yeah, they're
So
they're sharp. They're really sharp.
How low have you tried to run it?
Like as low as it'll go
On
without
the
the machine like
Giant
shutting down.
supply?
No, we're running Crable, and before that we were running Icons.
So you think a coil would be better though?
You can run like super low on the Cheyenne supply, like 60 punctures per second or something.
Yeah, you can turn that thing down, man, you know. With the Cheyenne power supply, I run mine usually around 7 when I'm shading. I have shaded with it at 8 as well. You know,
Between 7 and 8.
7 and 8, yeah, for sure. That's it, 7 or 8. Usually, I'll hit it. I'll bump it up to 8 to do white highlights at the end. If I'm lining, I'll put it on 8. Or sometimes with that 15 curve mag, I'll bump it up to 8. You know.
That's with the single needle? You shave with the single needle?
No, that's with my mags.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With those mags you talk about, sometimes if you have to do a large field solid black, will you still work with the bug pen, or you throw in a different Cheyenne cartridge?
I still work with bug pin. Yeah.
And just hammer in the black with that way too, just
Yeah.
work it on. Okay.
But you know, I was just doing something, I think a week ago. I had a giant, really big chunk of black. I'm thinking, you know, a big straight mag would probably put this in a little better and more efficiently, you know. And I think I was using my 7 curve mag, you know, or like a big, or whatever size mag, like a 9 mag straight, 11 mag straight or something. That's probably better for big black areas, I think. It's just, you're covering more ground. All those needles are hitting the skin. The curve mag, I don't know how many exactly how many needles are actually going in the skin, you know, but you're getting that middle somewhere, you know. So straight mag, I think you can pack big areas better because you got more needles in the skin. the whole time. You know what I mean?
When you're working, do you traditionally take everything soft and then darken it up? Or do you work from dark shaded areas and work out?
You know, I don't work dark to light or light to dark, you know, unless it's a freehand piece. Then I tend to like start from and work dark to light. Not for the whole thing, but I kind of start with the darker side of the tattoo. So if I'm drawing a demon head or something, and the light source is hitting from the side, I'll kind of start down on this side. A lot of times I'll jump right in and put shadows under the nose and stuff like that, and I might start doing the eye sockets, like the blacks in an eye socket, and then I start to, you know, probably the lightest part of the tattoo is probably the last thing I do. But with portraits, I'm just working from the bottom up, you know, so I'm kind of finishing as I go, you know. It's like a computer-generated thing. It's printing something out just from the bottom up. And the only reason I do that is because I don't want to wipe the stencil off, you know, because we're going in there with a shader and not lining anything, you know, so you're doing it all with a shader. So you have to start from the bottom, carefully wiping away from the stencil so you don't wipe it away, and just work my way up. So I'm usually, like say I'm doing a portrait with her grandma here, you know, I did her shirt first, you know. I did actually jump in real quick and just kind of gray line the pearl necklace, because when the stencil starts wiping away a little bit, little tight stuff like that, I want to make sure it's in there. I don't mind if bigger areas starts to wipe away, I can see it enough. I'm going to shade it, and if it's wiping away, I'll just fudge in some shading before I lose it, you know. But when I get up into the eyes, I tend to, like when I get into the teeth, I'll grab my 3 liner and just gray line real tight stuff around the teeth and stuff. And then when I get up into the eye, the nose, I usually do it all with the shader. When I get up into the eyes, I'll just grab my liner right off from the get-go and gray line everything I need to, where if anything wipes away, I have everything I need to finish it with a shader.
When you're putting in there with a 3 liner, are you just sketching it in lightly?
Yeah.
Or are you committing like a line?
No, I'm real lightly gray lining, and then even like, say, you know, like around the eyes, I'll gray line the top of the eye, and then as I'm doing it, either I come in with a shader and I'm kind of going over that. That's just a guideline that that area, it's going to be darker when it's finished, you know. But I like to.
What I'm saying is, are you just using a brush stroke motion, or are you?
No, I'm actually lining it in, but not like if I'm doing a solid black line.
Okay.
I'm grazing the skin a little. I'm probably not going as deep.
Gotcha.
Just deep enough to leave that little gray line, you know. But when I do black lines, I know it's going a little deeper because I'm really putting that line in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. And then when I get up to the hair is always the last thing I do, you know. And that's all done with my 5 mag straight, you know, all the hair, you know. And then because hair's all, when you do hair, and hair is really hard to do, and it's hard to talk about doing it, but it's all done with the mag. And hair is mostly like chunks of value, you know. It's not like a bunch of individual lines, you know. I remember seeing like old portraits back in the early 90s and stuff, where you could see they used a single needle and did a bunch of single lines in the hair, and it looked really cool, you know, but it looked a little less realistic. All those little lines just didn't look like real hair, like photorealistic hair. But when you do with the mag, you know, you're just sculpting it all out, you know, in different chunks of gray, how it overlaps and stuff. And then sometimes, and you turn a mag different ways. So sometimes you're doing like slivers of hair, you know, but it's not one line. It's more like say you have your mag, you're sort of on a slight angle like that, and then you're shading like that. So, you know, it's not like using a mag flat and you're catching all the needles. You know, you are catching all the needles, but you're working kind of sideways, you know. And there was always that theory that taking your mag and shading sideways, you know, you're going to cut somebody doing that, and I've never found that to be true. I've never done it, you know.
That was a question I was going to ask you, my main question. Do you turn off your machine when you turn your mag sideways?
No.
Or, no?
No. I pretty much, everything I do, I'd leave it unless I'm doing, some kind of line work or something, or white highlights. Or like I said, yeah, using that 15 mag or something. But I pretty much run it at 7 the whole time. And last night I think I did all the 15 mag stuff at 7. So it doesn't have to be bumped up to 8. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, I don't do everything the exact same way every tattoo.
Even for like your harsh lines, or you're only bringing it up to like an 8?
Yeah. Everybody else would probably, like, people who outline every day and stuff, I don't know what they would run it at, maybe 10. I know Tommy Lee Wetner uses the pen all black and gray, He runs his, I think, around 10 for everything. But he works fucking super fast, He's like, those guys that are really fast, they're working at the speed of their brain, which is fucking running a mile a minute, That's why Paul Booth tattoos so fast. His brain's working that fast, and he's trying to keep up with his brain, Where me, it's like I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do here? Do some little bumps here, if I'm doing like texture in a demon head or something, I want to really think about it, make sure I'm not sure what every tattoo, like, I don't know what it's going to turn out I have an idea, but, I kind of work on it as I go, and I'm thinking, okay, we'll do some little bumps here, we'll do some little rip skin here, or whatever, but it seems like Paul and Tommy, they know what they're doing before they're not even thinking about it, they're just like, so they got to turn their shit up faster, so to keep up with the speed they work, But for guys like me, portrait guys, Shane O'Neill, guys like that, Tom Renshaw and everything, I'm running at about 7 is perfect. And I worked with Big Gus a lot out in LA, and he had just got the pen. And he asked me what I ran mine at, because he had his, I think, about around 9 or something. I said, and he was not having a hard time, but wasn't totally comfortable with it. And he asked me what I ran it at. I said 7, so he tried it, and he's like, oh yeah, this is better, for the type of black and gray he's doing. So 7 seems like a good number if you guys haven't tried that speed yet or something,
What about the liner? Is that the same thing with the cartridges? I'm thinking of making the jump. Like, I'm fucking old school, man. Like, I get shit for running my 7s and my 5 liner, traditional coils. I get all kinds of shit from my guys, you gotta try it.
You don't have to try
a liner cartridge?
What's that?
You turn it up with the liner cartridge?
Yeah, I'm saying, like, if I'm shading at 7, I'll just bump it up to 8.
To line.
Once
you put the cartridge.
It seems like now, because this thing does everything. It lines, shades, one machine, which is really cool. But I think a coil machine is probably a better tool to outline with. That's a lot of people that I know, they'll set up a coil to line with, and then they'll do all the shading and whatever with the rotary, But this thing does it all. Like, I can line with it, but it seems like I have to line a little bit slower with it. Maybe I should try turning it up. Might be better, But I remember BJ Betts asking me too. He says, you got to go a little slower with that, don't you, when you outline, And he didn't even know what speed I outline at, but I was like, yeah. To put in a nice solid black line, I work a little slower. I don't do much outlining, so for me it doesn't matter, But for a guy like BJ Betts or Flox or all these lettering guys who do it every day, Norm, those guys are just like, they outline real fast. So that's not the best tool for outlining guys, You can do it. So as little outlining as I do, it doesn't matter, It works totally fine. It puts in good lines. It just might take a little longer than a coil that's set up for line work, I work at Shamrock, Mark Mahoney's shop out in LA too, and I work there like one day a week when I'm out there. And I'm the only guy in the shop using a rotary. There's 8 guys in there all using coils, so I feel weird, I thought about maybe using coils the one day a week I work there just for the vibe, and because I haven't touched a coil in a year and a half, But I think it might be kind of fun to hear that buzzing sound again. And it's an old school shop, you know. It's a tattoo shop. There's a pool table in front, you know, and there's still flash on the walls, and you know, it's an amazing shop, amazing crew. Freddie Negretti works there, you know. It's a really fun shop to work at. Anyway, what the hell was I talking about? Needle configurations?
Get in some technique as you're going about your.
You know what? Since I just did this Raven yesterday, I was going to pull that up just because I can tell you exactly what I use for what, because it's still fresh in my head. I'm going to pull up a bunch of pictures, yeah, and start talking about technique. Sound like a beer.
Seltzer.
There it is. Okay. Can you guys see that okay? Do you need to shut the windows at all, or are you good? As high as it goes.
Bob, you should flip the switch with the light that's on the wall back there.
You want this down
I'll shut that off.
or turn this down?
Maybe shut the light off, see how dark it is in here.
Yeah.
That's probably about this.
It's the temperature.
No, it's not. It's the ceiling lights.
Dimmer.
What's that one in the middle?
Oh.
Oh, okay. That's good.
It did, yeah.
It's still light enough to write notes on. Crap. Move this around. Okay, so this, I was going to show you guys my stencil too, because as I'm drawing this, I keep looking at the back. I'm like, this is going to be a nightmare. And it wasn't horrible, but you know, these feathers down here, you know, I was just pretty lost in there, in this whole area in here, which was kind of the first thing I did. I started from the bottom, worked my way up. So I kind of, as I was doing this, because it was really confusing, I kind of started over here and got this little outer part done. So I knew I started with these feathers and tried to kind of work my way over so I could know where I'm at. And it was still hard. But I don't know a better way to make my stencil, you know. So it's just the way it is, for me anyway. If you guys know a better way, please tell me. So I did 90% of this tattoo with that straight 5 mag bug pin. So like any kind of, you know, hair and stuff and feathers and stuff, you know, the 7 mag would probably be better, you know. I just love those little mags, man. It's just what I've kind of got used to using. So it took 7 hours, you know. Some people could do it quicker, I'm sure. I'm $200 an hour, but I never charge, like, I always charge less in the end because I feel like I'm a little slower than I should be, you know. I kind of think about other people, how long it would take them, what they charge, you know, and so I don't know.
I tend to think that the ends justify the means.
Yeah, exactly.
If it took you forever and it's shitty, then that's one thing.
Yeah. Yep. So I know what I did with this. I used the 5 mag for all this stuff. On this side, some of these feathers are a little darker because the light's sort of hitting from the top right, you know. So if you can see this whole area on the left side, where they're darker than like the ones in the middle here, where the lightest ones. So I did all this with the 5 mag, got it all the detail kind of in there, and then a lot of just the big open areas where it was just kind of like a gray. You guys can't see this from that far away. I don't have it, but so I could have done it all with the 5 mag straight, but I took that curved 7 mag and just did all of that. It's just kind of like a medium gray. So I was dipping in my medium tone and my light tone at the same time for some of it, you know. But I was just using that curved mag to just, because it's all just solid. It's all covered with a tone of gray, you know. So I pretty much finished it all off with the 5 mag, and then just in this part over here, I used that 7 curve mag, you know. It just seemed like a better tool, you know, just to do all that smooth, soft gray. So all this up here is at 5 mag, you know. As I got up in here, like all these little negative space kind of hairs here and stuff, and I don't know what this stuff was, if that's if they're like little hairs in the beak, but they were in the picture, so I put them in there, or if it was just like texture in the beak itself or something. Because this is all hair up here, and yeah, that's all done with the 5 mag. There's no liner in here at all. It's all that 5 mag straight, and you can just turn it different ways, and anything hairy, I love that little 5 mag.
How many gray tones do you have in there?
I'm using mine in 10s, my signature gray wash set. It's got 2 blacks. There's a dimension black, sculpting black. The dimension black is a really black. And then the sculpting black is kind of more of a lining black, you know. So I do all the solid black areas with the dimension black, this in here. You know, the blackest part of the eye and stuff. And then sometimes when I want a black, but not quite as dark, I'll use my sculpting black. And I usually end up going, if I'm going from black into a dark gray tone, I use a sculpting black, you know, shade it out a bit, and then come in with a dark tone. But I do a lot of, you know, in between. So I have 6 cups, you know, there's dimension black, sculpting black, dark tone, medium tone, light tone. And then I would always have a cup of distilled mixer at the end. But I was watching Freddie Negretti, who uses Mark Mahoney's Gangster Gray set, which has the same ratios of grays that are in my set. And after his light tone, he would fill a cup halfway with light tone and then distilled water. And it's like, I'm going to try that. And I tried it, and it's like, I like it. So that's what I'm doing now. And that's pretty much as light as I need to go. That half light tone, half water, you know, it's really light. So that's, you know, to finish it off with
They're
that.
like in, heel out, basically.
Yeah, blend that into open skin, you know. And you always have a cup of distilled water there, you know, your rinse cup, you know, so if you need more water, you got an endless amount right there. But I did this whole beak, that was the 5 mag straight. It was kind of textury, you know. If it was like ultra smooth, that whole beak, I probably would have used a 7 curve mag to shade that out. All this here, like I used the 5 mag straight to get some of these little chunks of darker areas. And the top of it was kind of blurry up there, like in the picture. It was real soft and fuzzy. So I did some of the tight stuff with the 5 mag, and then I used the 7 mag to do all that softer gray in the top of the head. Up on top here, like I used the 5 mag, straight 5 mag to create the edges of the background, you know, and because I'm kind of using it, and it's like negative shading, like I'm shading into the white, the skin, you know, to create the hair effect. But it's not like I'm not doing hair itself. It's like the background is creating the hair. It's hard for me to describe, you know. So, but I use that little 5 mag because I need a nice tight, you know, edges of the mag and stuff. And then I did that and just shaded it out a little bit. And then from there, I took the 15 curve mag and did all the soft background, you know. And it's you know, I use dark, medium, and light tone in there, so it looks kind of dark, you know. That 15 mag kind of puts it in a little dark, but it's going to be a little lighter when it heals, or around the edges of that. And then I use a 3-liner for white highlights usually. I'll talk about white highlights too. Not right this minute though. You guys have any questions about this thing? So that's pretty much my setup, 5 mag for most of it. I use the 3 liner to work, do the little bits in this little circle here in the eye. Real light gray lines, and then there's some real soft shading over it. This eye I did with the 5 mag straight, and I think I grabbed the curve mag and just did a couple little bits of the softer areas. Because there's probably there's black, and then there's dark gray, there's medium gray, and also a light tone in there as well. So there's 4 different values just in that eye itself,
Do you ever use a 3-needle liner to make like certain hairs pop out?
Every once in a great while, but 99% of the time I don't. I do it all with the 5 mag straight, we could talk about hair right now. I'm kind of... Let me see what I got here. Cash, maybe. Yeah, that should be a good one for here. This was done with coils. It's an older one. Johnny Cash. We can talk about a lot of different stuff in this one. So with the hair, it's all done. This was coil, so this was a 7 mag and a 5 mag too, but I could do the exact same thing with my little 5 mag with the Cheyenne. So as you can see, if you really look at it, it's more chunks of value than like individual hairs, but it looks hairy, and when you're doing it, a tattoo portrait of hair, you're never gonna do all the hair you see in a portrait. It's impossible. It's a tattoo. There's hundreds and hundreds, thousands of hairs, so you can't do that in a tattoo. So I always say I get the gist of it, You try to make it where it looks, people go, oh, it looks exactly like the picture, You're like, no, it doesn't, not even close. But you want to get that reaction from people. It's like an illusion, It looks exactly like the picture even though it doesn't. So, but with this, I'll do all the hair, get it pretty much done. I get a lot of the blacks first. Once I get up in the hair like this, I'll do the black chunks I tend to do first. It's a little more easy to read when I do that. As long as my stencil's not wiping away, I would prefer to do that. And then once the hair is pretty much done by shading everything, then I'll take 1 needle off the corner of that 5 mag and like a single needle would probably be better if anyone knows how to use them. Jack Rudy will tell you that. And then like where the hair attaches to the forehead, I'll shade it all out where you almost don't need to do what I'm about to tell you. It'll pretty much look finished. Do it all with, chunks of value. And then I'll take that 1 needle and just cut little hairs on top of what I just shaded and wisp them off into the skin. So then when it's done, if you really look, you can see some individual little single needle lines from the mag. Just enough where you can see some, You don't go crazy, I might just put enough in there where you can see a little bit of that, It's kind of like it's the final touch, And I'll also sometimes do that around the outer edges, I'll just take that 1 little needle and, And sometimes if you're doing a girl with I want to save this. Let me see if I have another one. I don't have a good example here. I could probably find something, but if say I'm doing a portrait of a girl with long brown hair or something, I think early on when I used to do portraits, I would probably just like the outer edge of the hair. Get this girl with just nicely washed, perfectly brushed hair, I would just shade out the outer edge of whatever it is and just be a perfectly smooth, just just a nice, really nice looking hair. But if you look at the picture and look really close, or look at anybody, look at a girl with nicely washed hair. Vegas hair is a little messy today. But look at somebody, no matter how nice their hair is, you see a bunch of little loose hairs all around the outer edge, you know. So at some point, I don't know if somebody pointed that out to me or if I just started doing it myself, I can't remember, but after a few years of doing portraits, I started shade all the hair, finish it off, and then at the very end, again, take one needle off the corner of the mag and maybe dip into a medium tone, sometimes even a light gray tone or something, and just cut little loose hairs here and there, like around the outer edge of it. And also, like when your hair on top is parted in the middle, you always see a bunch of little loose hairs up there. And so I'll do the same thing up there. And you can't, with a tattoo, you can't do tattoo hairs that fine, so I don't go crazy with it, you know. I just put just a few in there, so it's not just this perfectly shaded thing that looks like, you know, plastic hair or something, you know. So just some loose hairs where it doesn't look messy, but it looks a little more real, having some of those loose hairs there. If that makes sense to you guys, I know I don't talk that fucking. I couldn't be a history teacher. So that's what I do. You can see like this little chunk of hair on the side of Johnny here. You know, that's not one single hair. But that's using, you know, doing a little thin line chunk of hair using the mag, you know, just slightly cocked, almost sideways. Anyway, you know, I'll talk about background while I have this pulled up. I'm going to show you some other stuff too, but in a portrait, like I just saw some portraits yesterday, beautifully, totally realistic portraits, and then he did some hard black, like maybe a 7-liner around the edges, and I thought it looked great, you know. It looks less realistic when you do that, but it looks like a tattoo. And it's just different. I don't see that anymore, you know. And it's like, that looks great, even though it's, you know, everything in it was photorealistic except the lines in it. It's just it's a style, you know. It's a tattoo, so you can do anything you want with it. But pretty much for me, though, when I'm doing a portrait, I'm trying to make it look as much like the photo as possible, and I'm trying to make it look as photorealistic as possible. And in the real world, we don't have outlines, you know. Everything's created with edges of value, you know. So stuff like this, like Johnny, to the bottom of his hand here, because the light source is hitting from above, going down. The bottom of his hand was pretty dark, so the edge of his hand creates the edge of his hand, you know. Where up here, the side of his nose was almost no value in there, so you have to do, the background creates the edge of the nose there. It's the opposite. Down here, it's the subject matter itself is the edge. Up here, the background is creating the edge. So you just play around with background, you know. This whole side was light, so I got a dark background. But in the eye here, you can see it's darker. So like I didn't want the background against the nose, I didn't want it to be as dark up here because it would take away from the edge of his eye there. So you can see I kind of just brought it back a little bit. I left a tiny bit of open skin around that eye, but kept the background consistent away from the eye, kind of going up. So the background's consistent all the way up, but here you got to leave a little so the eye pops out more. So you just got to play with background to create those edges, you know. As you can see down here, the bottom of his nose is darker, so I just lightened up, you know, I went from like a medium to a real light tone, faded off into open skin. So all these edges still pop, you know, but there's still background. And then down here, like, he's got a white shirt he's wearing. I needed a background to create the edge of his shirt there. And then the watch was darker, so I have a background against the watch, but you can see it, I went from a dark gray to like a medium gray, really quickly to a light gray. So the watch still stands out, the shirt stands out. And then as I got up in the hand, which is real dark, I brought the background up just to have some background, but I left a little open skin there, So you just gotta play around with backgrounds to create those edges. The back of his head, the hair is dark, so I didn't do any background, didn't need it. And he's got a vest on up there, so that's dark. So there's no background on the left side, And, the top of the head's dark, doesn't need background.